There's lots of different varieties of birds, and everybody has their favorite. But probably one of my favorites is this northern flicker. I've been studying this species for about 20 years, and this was one of the birds that died on my study area in BC a few years ago. But you can see the brilliant red colors on the underwings of this bird, and they just have a lot of personality and flamboyance associated with them. So that's why they're one of my favorite birds. The flicker I started studying when I first started my job here at the university. And to me it was a colorful and active bird, but no one knew very much about the basics of how it lived. So I decided to start a field project where I tracked the breeding of about 150 pairs every year. So I've been studying the flicker for about 20 years now and have color banded about 11,000 birds. This flicker here has an aluminum band, so it was one of the chicks that was born on my study area. So I just got interested in basic biology, and we've learned a whole bunch of fascinating things about flickers that nobody ever knew before. So that's what makes them really interesting. People band birds. It was an early technique to look at where they went during migration. So they have a special number, a unique number on a metal band that is unique to that bird. And with a pliers, you just clamp the band around their leg and then hope that if the bird dies after migration some years later, someone can find the band and return it to the banding office, and then you can track the start and end point of where the bird ended up. But it is quite an inefficient way of tracking migration because many birds you just never hear from again. So these days they have better technology with satellite transmitters that can follow birds over longer distances. But other studies, you can put colored plastic leg bands on the bird in a unique color code combination. And then that lets you know individual birds from each other. So in my study in flickers, every bird has a 4-letter name. That's their color band code. And then we can see when they come back after migration if their partner survived. So do they mate with the same mate, or do they get a new mate? Do they come back to the same tree? How long do they live? And you can start to answer all kinds of detailed questions once you know the individual identity of a bird. One interesting thing that we learned about flickers, I was the first to discover that about 5% of females are polyandrous. So that means they can mate with 2 males at the same time. So a female might lay a clutch of eggs for one male in one tree and then have another male partner a few hundred meters down the road, and she lays some eggs for him. And that's quite unusual for birds. Usually it's a male that might have 2 females, but to find that flickers, it was the opposite. That was really quite cool. And then just to understand how the male flickers invest a lot in parental care, they had kind of reversed sex roles from other birds. So the males do most of the incubation in flickers, and they feed and take care of the young even more than the females do. So that was a really exciting discovery that we made. And then just to be able to follow them throughout their whole lifespan, to figure out how their reproduction improved with age. So they start to breed when they're yearlings, but they're very inexperienced. And at first they don't lay very many eggs and they kind of suck. But after a few years with some experience, they improve. So you can learn about the whole lifespan of a bird and what makes them good parents. and yeah, how they adapt to predation and other threats in the environment. If you see flickers in your backyard, sometimes here in Saskatoon, you'll notice that most of them are bright yellow. This flicker that I'm holding, it's kind of orangey, and there's some flickers that live out west that are bright red. So those are all colors of different subspecies of flickers. They can all interbreed with each other. So this flicker probably had one red parent and one yellow parent, and then its color turns out to be kind of a mixture, so it's orangey. So they're considered hybrids, two color forms that hybridize, and they can come up then with a variety of different color morphs. This one's mustache is part red and part black, so that's also a hybrid trait between a red flicker and a yellow flicker. Another study that we did looked at how birds choose mates based on plumage ornaments. So we measured the color of the black breast bib that flickers have. Both males and females have this. And we also measured the size of the spots on their stomachs. And we found that older and better quality birds had shinier black bibs and larger and more melanin in the breast spots. So it seemed to be a reliable indicator of the quality of the feathers that the birds could grow if they were well fed. And males and females paired up according to the brightness of the bib colors. So it seems to be a trait that's used in displaying and mate selection in flickers. One of my strangest claims to fame is that I've touched more flickers than anybody in the world, as far as I know, because I've banded over 11,000 individuals, both adults and chicks. And I don't think there's anyone else in the world that has ever done a population studies of flickers before. So that's touching live flickers, not dead ones. So when we're studying flickers in the field, the first thing we have to do is find their nests. So we do a lot of walking around in the forest looking for tree cavities and playing tape recordings of flicker noises to see if there's any flickers around. And then once we find an active nest, I trap them inside their nest holes with a Nerf ball on the end of a really long pole. So then you have to be really quiet and really sneaky and approach the tree without crinkling the leaves, or else the flicker will fly out of the hole. But hopefully, if you have luck, you stuff it when it's inside the tree cavity. And then your assistant has to run up with a ladder so you can climb up the ladder and then pull the bird out of the hole. So that's how we catch most of our birds. And then we weigh them and band them and do all the things that we do as scientists with our birds. One thing that's really important from a conservation point of view is that we've come to see that these are keystone species. So they are very important in forest ecosystems because they excavate nest holes that in subsequent years other mammals and birds need holes to nest in. So things like squirrels, like bluebirds, like even some ducks wouldn't be able to nest without flickers digging a hole for them first. So we call them keystone species, and they have a really important ecological role in maintaining the biodiversity of forest ecosystems. So not only are they interesting from a bird behavior point of view, they are really important from a conservation and management point of view for forestry companies to understand the importance of maintaining snags and woodpeckers on the landscape to maintain lots of other forest birds and mammals in the process.